Alright, welcome to the Kickback. We have just seen West Ham United pick up their first home win of the season, beating Newcastle by 3-1. It's Richie McCormack here. Keith Treacy watched it alongside me. Keith, it's a difficult one to try and parse through because it was 2 injury time goals that ultimately settled the affair. The first at the end of the first half with Sven Botman turning home that Aaron Wan-Bissaka cross, and then Thomas Soucek stabbing home from close range at the closing knock-ins of the game. But West Ham deserved that win, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did. I did really worry for them in the opening 5 minutes of the game. Jarrod Bowen goes down the left wing and he hits the post, and you're thinking, okay, there's a little bit here with West Ham. They look like maybe they've got the bit between their teeth. They realise how big of a game this is, that the 3 newly promoted teams are doing quite well within the league, and I know mathematically it's nowhere near a must-win game for West Ham, but I had that little bit of a feel around it. And when they go 1-0 down, you're thinking, oh my God, Newcastle are just going to push these aside, and it's going to become really toxic here all of a sudden. But to be fair to West Ham, they dug in after Newcastle and Murphy scored that goal. They just took a grip of the game. They became better. Defensively, their shape was an awful lot better than it has been, and on the wing, Somerville was a constant threat, Bowen was a constant threat, and Paquetá in the middle just looked like he was in the mood all of a sudden. And as soon as West Ham get themselves back into the game, he wants the ball that little bit more. He becomes the architect, the playmaker for West Ham that they need. And you look at West Ham and think there's definitely 3 teams worse than them in the Premier League, although, you know, the points tally at the minute isn't anywhere near good enough. But I'm sure Nuno Espirito Santos will be saying that's the platform we can build on.
From Newcastle's perspective, Nick Voltemada taking off at half-time. You talk about Paquetá being that kind of playmaker figure. Newcastle's midfield is oftentimes the best element of their team last season, but today kind of shows the negative aspect of that, where you almost have 3 people doing the exact same job and there's nobody really to take it forward and create those attacks. Yeah,
I've heard words like powerful being used when you think about Newcastle's midfield. Joe Linton, very, very powerful player. Tonali, very powerful player. Bruno Guimaraes is somebody who can do a little bit of everything. He can put his foot in, he can play football. Tonali, the same, can play a little bit of football. But they looked really, really low on ideas. And, you know, after they scored the first goal, you're thinking, go and put them to the sword now. Didn't seem able to do it whatsoever. I give West Ham big credit for that, but you're not going to get a better opening to a game than being 1-0 up away from home inside the first 5 minutes. And they just seemed like they thought, well, we've got our goal now, let's sit back and see what West Ham have to offer. And West Ham were absolutely brilliant, but Eddie Howe will be saying you can't start games like that. Although they were 1-0 up inside 5 minutes, they weren't good enough, and the effort levels, they looked leggy in the middle of the park. And if you take away Newcastle's combativeness in the middle of the park, they look very, very average in there. And look, I give West Ham big credit, especially in the second 45. I thought their shape was an awful lot better. But Newcastle, in terms of opening teams up or opening West Ham up today, just didn't look capable.
Was West Ham's claim for a penalty in the first half more than justified? I know it was ruled out because it was a Thiago got kind of studs to the ball almost just milliseconds before the contact with Jarrod Bowen. But surely if that happens anywhere else on the pitch, that's a free kick.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm looking at this, and if I'm Malik Thiaw who makes the challenge, I wouldn't want the penalty given against me because I've got some sort of something on the ball. It's the nearest the scrapes of the studs along the ball. If you're Jarrod Bowen, you're thinking he's come right across me, he's took me left leg out of it, he's come through me to get to the ball. That's what I would be saying to the referee. And you know, it's like a toss of a coin now. And again, I say this all the time, and this is not to pat myself on the back. I played in every professional league in England, and I have no idea what's a penalty and what's not. What is a penalty these days? And for me, if you go through a player to get to the ball, that's a foul, it's a penalty. Yeah. And the referee saying, well, he's got a little bit of the ball, that's good enough for me. Well, is that the rule now? If you can kick through people to get to the ball? And
it's minor contact with the ball.
Very, very minor
grazes
contact.
His studs.
And like you say, Richie, if that's outside the box, I think it's a foul and nobody blinks twice.
Sure.
Why isn't it a penalty? And the fact that it was given a penalty on field, I didn't think VAR would overturn it because, like I say, I think he takes 90% the bone and 10% of the ball, and 10% of the ball is probably being a little bit generous.
It looks like West Ham have a new folk hero in Freddie Potts. First Premier League start today. Denied a goal himself by VAR and the big toes of Thomas Soucek, but really industrious around the centre of the park. He had to operate as that kind of screen in front of the back four, a job that they hadn't really had anybody doing up until this point this season, and he did it really well.
Yeah, I do think, like, when Paquetá is playing in the number 10, he gives you so much. He has so many attributes in terms of getting on the ball and making things happen. Doesn't really do the dirty side of it. Won't harass people. Won't go back and win the ball back for his team. So Potts is going to be given an awful lot of them responsibilities. He'd done it really well. If he'd have scored that goal, it would have been a wonderful, wonderful day. From every time he touched the ball, it seemed like the camera panned to the bench to see his father. So brilliant from Potts. Unlucky he didn't get the goal, but I'm sure Nuno will be looking, thinking this West Ham team seems to have a little bit more shape about it. So I think Potts will be there for this foreseeable anyway.
No away wins for Newcastle in the Premier League this season. This is a worry. Like they can't really be expecting to regain Champions League football if they continue this kind of form.
Yeah, and I do look at it and think Newcastle's season on a whole has been more than acceptable, but when you isolate it in terms of the Premier League, it hasn't been anywhere near good enough. Their wins have all come at home. They've got a couple of draws on the road, but you know, I haven't learned anything new about Newcastle. I know St James's Park is an absolute fortress for them, but when they come away from there, they look average. And I know, like, you can say, oh, they're playing cup games, they're playing Champions League games. They've got a good enough squad to go and compete on every level. And I'd imagine the Newcastle owners will be thinking exactly the same. So the longer they linger in the bottom half of the Premier League, it doesn't matter what they do in the Champions League. You'd imagine the owners won't be happy.
I know John asked you the question before the game about playing home and away, and you kind of had the response that you enjoyed playing away from home. But like, looking back over your career, why is it that it can become such a hurdle to getting good performances out of a team that you go away from home like that?
I'm not too sure. It's nothing more than a feel, and you know, the environment you're walking in, it feels a little bit more hostile. You stay in a hotel the night before, you travel to the game on a bus rather than your own car. You're getting your meal handed to you in the hotel rather than making it for yourself. So there's little nuances, but nothing that, you know, it should be black and white and go, oh, you can tell this Newcastle team are at home, and you can tell they're away today. So I wouldn't be letting the Newcastle players off with, well, they're away from home, you know, it is what it is. If you want to be a professional footballer, you're going to have to go into people's backyards and play football. And the likes of Tonali is an Italian international, Bruno Guimaraes is a Brazilian international. So if you're telling me they can play in St James's but they can't play down in London, well, then they're not worth their salt, and you know, they're nowhere near being professional footballers. But I always thought when you play at Everton, you know, the stadiums that are really, really close and on top of you, puff your chest out. They only slag the good players, they only kick the good players. So if you're getting abuse from the home crowd, it's because they're worried about what you can bring to the team's performance. So yeah, I never like to see players shy away when they come away from home.
All right, Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure. That's been the Kickback for now. Cheers.